Live for March 17th, 2024. I'm Peggy Kay, and today there are updates for YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Chrome is making your browsing safer, and there's an update to how Google tries to help you, the website owner, make your pages load well. So, happy St. Patrick's Day, first off. I hope you're wearing green so nobody gives you a pinch. I have a bunch of things to talk about today. It's great to see you here live. Hi, Eileen and Craig and everybody else who's watching. Today, I'm going to get started with a brief update from YouTube that's really pretty convenient if you use the clips feature. Let me get this quickly on screen. If you have used YouTube clips, that's a way you can click the little clips icon under any video and then select a segment of it to share. You can give a title to that segment and then share the segment, and it links back to the original video. So this is a really useful way to save and share video sections, either of other people's videos or your own. What YouTube has done now is made those clips available in your library. To access them on desktop, go into YouTube, click the left menu, and you should see a section that's like your things, and you can see clips there. Once you go into the clips, you can either select clips that people made of your videos, or you can see a list of clips you've made of other people's videos. So this is just an easy way to see all the clips associated with your channel. On mobile, to access this, you need to tap your channel icon at lower right. That opens what they call your library on YouTube. It has your uploads, your history, all those details, and now you can see the clips associated with your channel there. So that's the first update for this week. I think that's pretty useful, and I like how YouTube is finally making things more convenient. They've had the clips feature for a long time, but it wasn't easy to access them. So this is good if you use clips. And so now I'm going to talk really briefly about a couple of updates for Instagram and TikTok for you video folks. And this is about monetization. So over on TikTok, I'm going to start with update on Instagram just to keep things moving correctly. Adam Mosseri is the head of Instagram, and he had a sort of controversial reel this week. He talked about monetization for creators, and he specifically called out the fact that if you're a small creator on Instagram, you should be working on growing your following. Don't worry about monetization, he says. And we're talking about, if you just have a few thousand followers there. He says if you're a big account, hundreds of thousands of followers, you can monetize by having people do a paid subscription or brand deals, and then only far down the list is getting a share of Instagram's sort of bonus pot for top reels, and it's not even clear they have ad revenue sharing. So this was a bit controversial, and first because it kind of seemed to blow off small creators. And secondly, he specifically said, well, there's never going to be a case when Instagram can make payments to everyone. This is actually significantly different, of course, than YouTube, because YouTube has ad revenue sharing. It's pretty clear that Instagram is not doing ad revenue sharing, or at least is downplaying that. So there is a lot of negativity around this because it feels very much like Instagram only cares about these big creators and then is telling those big creators you should go out and make brand deals. It doesn't make Instagram that appealing a platform if monetization is what you're interested in. I think it's probably a lot better if you maybe are using that to promote something specifically rather than trying to earn from the platform itself, unless you have a huge following, and then go for it. Also related to monetization this week is an update over on TikTok. Now, I will acknowledge that TikTok is in a weird space right now. The US Congress, the House of Representatives voted to, they say, not ban TikTok, but they say ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, which is a Chinese company, needs to sell off the TikTok portion to somebody in the US, or they're going to ban it. It's not clear this is actually going to pass into law. We will see what happens. TikTok has been suggesting that its users contact their congressional representatives about this. Does it make a difference? I don't know. There's a lot of government people who actually use TikTok too, so we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, TikTok is also making updates for creators. It has a new option. Let me just scroll up a little bit. A new option called Creator Search Insights. And what Creator Search Insights are is a way for creators to find out what topics are searched for frequently on TikTok. And you can sort the topics by category: tourism, sports, science, and so forth. Or you can get a For You list that's related to the kind of content you make on TikTok. What is interesting about this is that it's not only a way to find topics to make your videos about. TikTok also says that if you want to use the Creator Rewards program, that means TikTok gives you some money if your TikToks do well. They say that creating content related to in-demand search topics increases the creator's content's search value. So the Creator Rewards program is a way to earn money if your videos are longer than a minute long. And it uses a bunch of factors to determine how much your video earns. Apparently, content search value is one of those factors. So TikTok wants to have creators make content that people are searching for. It kind of makes sense. If you are a TikTok creator, you may want to check out this new feature. Even if you aren't monetizing, it may be a way to inspire you to make content that people are looking for. And then finally, on the social media scene, there's an update over on Bluesky. Now, Bluesky is one of the Twitter-like platforms, and it doesn't have a huge user base. They launched, I think, a year ago, and they left it to be invite only for a really long time. It has a small user base, but one of the things that Bluesky has that distinguishes it from other platforms like X, like Threads, like Mastodon, is that it offers what they call ozone. And ozone is a moderation tool that's collaborative and can be shared. So the idea, as I understand it, is that instead of relying on Bluesky to have really detailed moderation, you can instead use this ozone or use a moderation filter that someone created through ozone to make your own choices. And the specific example they give is, let's say you hate spiders. You could, at least theoretically, have a moderation filter that blocks all spider-related content from your feed on Bluesky. And you can sort of layer these moderation tools, picking and choosing what you want to see. So their pitch is that you don't depend on billionaires unilaterally making decisions over what you see. And this lets you work with others, collaborate to choose what it is that you do and don't want to see. Bluesky will still do basic moderation. So the worst content, presumably they will remove, hopefully, and then you can have additional moderation on top of that. It's going to be really interesting to see how well this works in practice, but I think it's an interesting approach. The difference between this and the moderation on Mastodon is that Mastodon moderation happens mostly at the server level. So you join a specific server for Mastodon, and then the server will decide what kind of content that it blocks. It may block specific other servers. So if the server you're on decides this other server has a bunch of really bad people on it, they can just block that other server completely from federation. So it's a totally different approach. This way, you are choosing what you want to see. Nobody else is choosing for you. So it might be worth checking out. I actually like Bluesky, but it's not great unless you're following a fair number of people. So if you do sign up for Bluesky, take the time to follow a bunch of accounts that you're interested in. Bluesky also has feeds you can follow, which are great. These are curated lists of posts. It's not like Twitter X, where the lists are of individual accounts. Instead, this is specific posts. So if someone posts about a bunch of different topics, you can follow a science feed, and then you just get a science-related post. So check that out. Now, I'm going to switch now a bit to something that I am not a full expert on, but I'm going to do my best to explain. If you have your own website and you are interested in having your website appear in Google search, and most people do feel that way, there is a set of metrics Google has that are called core web vitals. The idea is that you check your website against these core web vitals and they give you a score. Do you pass? Do you fail? And it has to do with user experience. And notably, this score is not just Google going in and checking the code on your site. Instead, they're using actual data from users about how long it takes your page to load and so forth. What changed this week is that interaction to next paint is now a Web Core Vital metric. This replaces first input delay. Now, what do those things mean? I will mention that if you've been checking these stats, interaction to next paint has been a stat for a while. They've been testing it. The change this week is that it has completely replaced this other metric. So it now has stable status. So what do these metrics actually mean? And you have to think about this as a way to understand how someone who opens a web page on your site for the first time experiences that page. And so interaction to next paint is a measure of responsiveness. And I'm going to get the exact definition here. So interaction to next paint observes the latency of all click, tap, and keyboard interactions with a page throughout its lifespan and reports the longest duration, ignoring outliers. So if you have a low number for INP, that means your website is responding quickly. If you have a high number, there's a big delay in the response, which is obviously not a positive user experience. And so there are a bunch of these metrics that's worth reading about them. You can either check the information in your search console, or you can go to the search page speech. Let me say that again. If you want to check your site or any other website, you can go to the Page Speed Insights test pagespeed.web.dev, and that will show you the scorecard for the website you're checking. There are Google sites that do really poorly. So it's not one of those things where if you get a bad score, that means nobody will ever see your site, but it's something to work on. I'm just going to enter a Google site. You can see it runs pretty quickly. This is fonts.google.com. That's the site where Google has fonts you can use for your website. And you can see that the Core Web Vitals assessment is that it failed. So it's not just your site, Google's site, and you have to decide how to balance these metrics with how your site actually works. If you have advertising on your site, for example, or widgets or scripts, that can delay your site significantly, but you may decide that it's more important to have those things than have this metric be super fast. So that's something to look at if you have your own website. It's hard. If you're using any sort of content management platform, Blogger, WordPress, Wix, there are quirks to each of these and things that you can't necessarily change. So you may be stuck with the way they work. Now I'm going to switch gears a bit and talk about safe browsing. There was a significant change to Chrome this week. And oops, I just need to find the correct tab. All right. This is an update to Chrome's safe browsing. And if you're not familiar, safe browsing checks the site you're trying to reach in Chrome against a database of bad sites, malicious sites. And if you're trying to access a site that is malicious, you may see this big red interstitial screen, dangerous site, don't go here, proceed at your own caution. What I didn't realize is that the way Chrome has been doing this is that it's basically importing a list from Google to your browser, to your device, every minute or so. This gives Chrome the list of sites to compare against. It's amazing how fast all of this actually is. The change that's happening is that Chrome is no longer going to download that list to your device because it is too slow. So they say that malicious sites, a lot of them have a lifespan of only 10 minutes or so. So there's like a phishing site, it tries to steal people's information. It's only up for 10 minutes or so. It can actually collect a lot of people's data in that time. Now, your web browsing is going to be sent to Google, so they check it on their servers. And that's much faster, so you're getting the most updated list of bad sites. I think it updates every 10 seconds, something like that. And they have structured this in such a way that it protects your data. So Google is not actually seeing, Google doesn't know what you're looking at. It goes through a third-party site called Fastly. And you can read about this in this week's newsletter if you want to read all of these links. It uses something called oblivious HTTP. And Google also has a post in their online security blog about how all of this works. I'll just say really quickly, this is what's happening when you visit a site. Chrome checks its cache to see if it's already known to be safe. If it's not in the cache, the URL is hashed, it's encrypted. This is partially truncated. This truncated hash goes to the Fastly server. That strips away your IP address. It then goes to Google. It checks it against the database for potential matches. It comes back through Chrome. If there is a partial match, again, in the server-side database, it goes back to Chrome and says there may be a problem. And then after receiving the unsafe hashes, Chrome checks them against the full hashes of the visited URL. And if there's a complete match, Chrome shows a warning. There's a lot of technical details in this, but the bottom line is that your searches should be safer because Google can check against the latest bad malicious sites that might have phishing, that might have malware. They say they may be able to detect up to 25% more of the bad sites this way. So you may see this notice more if you're out surfing the web. Stay away. If you see that notice, it's usually truly a bad site. And this at least sounds like it's a way Google can do this very quickly without knowing who you are. It doesn't know who is visiting this site. It just knows whether this site is bad or good. So this is a change coming to the latest version of Chrome. The bad thing about this is that Google says it may be a little bit more resource intensive, so it could slow Chrome down. I am wondering if you have an older computer, if that might actually be a problem. Let's see. So those are the big updates for this week. Um, One of the things I wanted to also mention is a report from the Wall Street Journal. Now, I'm sure all of you are all pretty familiar with how generative AI works, in at least in the broad strokes, where to train the generative AI, companies need a whole bunch of data. And there's been a lot of controversy in that these AI companies have been using people's content, text content, video content, images, without getting permission first. Adobe Firefly says that they only used licensed images, um, or public domain images. Other companies, they never ask for permission. They don't use licensed content. So the latest really cool thing is a text to video generator called Sora. This is through OpenAI, which also makes ChatGPT. The question is, how were Sora trained? So there is an interview from the Wall Street Journal with the chief technology officer from OpenAI. And notably, the answer to the question about how Sora was trained was, we used publicly available data and licensed data. And the chief technology officer would not actually say where that publicly available data was from. She was asked specifically about YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and so forth. Said she wasn't sure, but I think the implication is pretty clear that if you have YouTube videos, OpenAI probably used it to train this video generator. And it's really kind of sucky that they're using people's copyrighted content, people's creative output to this AI tool that they're saying, oh, it can make videos, and people are touting it as, oh, it can replace filmmaking, and all this. It can only replace filmmaking because it trained on all these creators' hard work. So it's not nice. There's a bunch of lawsuits pending. The AI companies seem to mostly be using the idea that it's better to ask forgiveness than ask permission. So they've already trained these AI tools, and now they're saying, oh, well, if we had to get permission or licenses, we couldn't even make them. And we'll see how that actually spins out. But I think it's kind of sucky. Those are the updates for this week. 2 things to do this week. The first thing is that Google I/O, Google's big developer conference, is May 14th. You can sign up for Google I/O, and that will let you set up a schedule and indicate which types of announcements you're interested in. It's a developer conference, but they always use it to make their biggest announcements about the direction they're heading in the coming year and various product updates. There's also an interesting puzzle this year. It's aimed at developers, but if you've ever played the game Pipes, where you have to like connect pipes for water to flow, you may be able to do this puzzle even if you're not a developer. So check that out. The other thing I wanted to mention is a new app from Mozilla. Mozilla is the parent company of Firefox, but they have a new app called Didthis. Didthis is aimed at hobbyists, as the headline says. And the idea is that you can use this to document a project. So you can keep track of the various steps you took, take notes, videos, photos, links, and it creates it into a timeline. It is private by default, but you can share this with other people you want. And there is a Did This community you can share this with. They're saying, it's not social media. It's just a way to organize things in a way that you can share. It looks like it can actually be kind of useful. Right now, there's only an iOS app for Did This. Android and a web version are supposedly coming. I don't know. The main problem with apps like these is that you don't know how long they will persist, so you can try it and it could be gone. Those are the updates for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. Note that if you want all this week's updates and tips, they are in my weekly blog post and email newsletter. There are links in the video description. Be sure to subscribe to the newsletter if you want the links in your email inbox every Saturday. I will see you all next week. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Thank you for joining me.